Hello and welcome to the Valley today. I am your host, Janet Michael. It is Red Cross Day, so I'm back on the Zooms with Deb Fleming. She's the Executive Director for the Greater Shenandoah Valley chapter of the American Red Cross. Deb, we're going to talk community mobilization today, which sounds like a super fancy term, but it's not all that fancy, is it?
No, it is not. It is really about working with the community to assess what needs are in the community and to provide the resources needed to make the community self-sufficient and self-sustaining.
We've talked a lot over the last several months about the fact that you at Red Cross could not do what you do if you were only doing it with staff, because you only have 3 people that are in your office. There's no way that you would be able to do the things that need to be done. That's where the community mobilization comes in as well, because you need other people out there, not to just say, hey, this is what we need, but here, let me help you with that.
That's right. So when a lot of people think of the Red Cross, they think of this large organization, but we are made up of volunteers within the community. And so what community mobilization for us is that we are really focusing on the community. What is the community vision? What is needed in that community? And instead of necessarily always having people as Red Cross volunteers, which we still want, of course, but what are our partners doing? What are some of the other community organizations doing that we can support so that the community as a whole, that we don't need to bring people in from the outside? The community can sustain itself with the volunteers that we have within the community as well as within the Red Cross.
The thing that I don't know that a lot of people truly realize or appreciate is just how crazy different all of our communities are. Like, there are needs in Winchester that are polar opposite from those in Hagerstown, Maryland, or those in Page County, Virginia, all within your geographical area, but they could be polar opposites for what their community needs and who you need to help serve that purpose.
That's right. We have a wide range. In our chapter, we have 11 counties that we cover, 5 in Virginia, 5 in West Virginia, and 1 in Maryland. And so each of those communities, we have different ethnic groups within the communities. We have different income brackets, age and population. So every community does need something different. And certain communities are really good at mobilizing certain aspects of their community, but need support in other areas. And so really looking at the communities individually is really important.
Do you have a hierarchy? Are there things that when you come into a community that you immediately look for to say, okay, they've got this and this and this covered, but they might need some help here and here and here? And then what does that process look like?
Yeah, so what we do is we work with the local officials to tell us what's going on in the community. But what we're really looking at with community mobilization is getting even further into the community with community groups, civic organizations, other nonprofit groups, individuals, and really analyzing, are we really touching the community in the way that it needs? So for instance, right now we're doing a maturity matrix, and that is where we study from our perspective. We're starting from how do we feel we're doing with this at a ground level. So we start off with our partnerships. How developed are our partnerships? Do we really know them very well? And do we not just know them? Are we working together hand in hand, sharing resources, supporting each other? Or are we just, oh, I'll refer this person to that because they support that, but we're not really working together? So we're looking at that. Then we have operational strategy and development. How do we operate at the Red Cross? Are we operating in a way that really touches the community? Or are we kind of insulating ourselves and trying to figure out it on our own? The people that we bring in as staff and as volunteers, are they representative of all the different groups in the community? There's several different things that we're looking at while we're developing this. And community mobilization, the maturity matrix, we know we're not at a gold or a platinum level in a lot of these areas. And so we're really taking a good hard look at ourselves to see where are we and what do we need to do.
And so much of that then comes back to not just those community leaders that you're working with or the organizations that you're partnering with, but just your everyday residents, your retired military that live in the area that have skills that could be so beneficial and helpful to you in some sort of a crisis or an emergency, or even just from a planning for one of those things in the future.
What is really neat about this is that there are so many different groups that we look at, but are we incorporated with? We do really well, I would say, in the Frederick County, Winchester area with our military, Martinsburg, VA. We work with them a lot. But are we doing that as well in other counties? And that's what we had to look at, is how much community interaction do we have? We have a larger base in Martinsburg. We have a larger base of veterans and military personnel. So it might not be as big of a need in some of the other counties that we have. So we have to look at that as well. Every county is different. Every need is different. We all have some similar needs, right? We want to be cared for. We want to make sure that we're going to be okay when a disaster hits. We have to have the resources, but what resources do we have in those counties? A lot of that depends on the wealth of the county and the industries that are in that county and the management. We have to take a look at all of that.
There are communities that are much more rural across the Shenandoah Valley. There are communities that have a bit more of that industry base. And that's why having these volunteers to be part of that planning process with you, or to be able to sit down with you and say, hey, these are the nonprofits that help this particular sector. And we feel like they need a little more help than maybe they've gotten in the past. That's the kind of input that you need from people across the region.
That's right. Yeah. It's really interesting as we're at the beginning phases of this. The Red Cross has asked us, don't try to fix anything yet. We want a realistic, honest answer to where you are. We don't want you making anything up. We want to know, are you in? And there were several of them. We have 7 different weeks that we look at these, and that we have our board members who are volunteers. If there is special skill sets with our volunteers, we bring them into these conversations if they have experience in certain areas. So we're kind of, okay, where are we? Where do we think we are? Now, next step is to go out to the community and say, where do you think we've been? Because as the Red Cross, we have been working from ourselves and working with the community. But now we really want to be in the community and a part of the community and be a resource for the community. So we do expect that that is going to change how we interact. In fact, they even changed the names of our managers. They now call them Community Disaster Program Managers and Community Disaster Program Specialists. Those are the individuals in disaster. They are making a very strong point that they want us in the community, working every day, being a part of the community, really not coming to the community, but being a part of it.
We've talked about this in the past as well, that so many people hear Red Cross and the first thing that they think of are blood drives, which
Yes.
doesn't necessarily align with disaster. Or, I mean, it does if you've had a disaster, then you see a lot of people doing blood drives and that sort of stuff. But there's a lot of education out there that has to be done, not just from Red Cross to the community, but inside the community itself, to make sure that everybody knows you're not just blood drives, that there are things that happen that are a crisis in every community we have every single day that you need some help with.
Yes, and thank goodness we do have the blood drives that if somebody is a burn victim and they need blood, right? That is a disaster. Everything is connected, but we definitely need to show that within our community, like certain communities, they may have more of a preparedness programming. Other communities may have less. We may have less interest because maybe a fire station offers some of the things that we could offer. We're not needed in that way there. So we're not going to push our way into something that we're not needed. We want to make sure that the resources are being put in an area that are most needed. And that's the other part of this community mobilization, is finding out where the biggest need is. For a while, we spread ourselves thin. We did a little bit of everything everywhere. Now we're really focused on what is the greatest need and how can we be there to support it.
So we started this conversation back in January and decided we were going to have a talk about disasters and all of the different things that Red Cross does. And it was centered around initially the concept of this disaster leadership academy that you and I somewhat concocted over coffee last year. And I got to learn to quit saying, you know what you should do, because then what happens is somehow these things come to life and I feel responsible for them in some way, shape, or form. So let's take a break. When we come back, can we talk about how this Disaster Leadership Academy looks and how it fits into community mobilization as a whole? Can we do that in the next
Yes,
segment?
that's perfect. Thank you.
We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Deb Fleming. She is Executive Director for the Greater Shenandoah Valley chapter of American Red Cross. We are talking community mobilization today. When we come back, we're going to learn more about the Disaster Leadership Academy in just a couple of minutes.
This Tuesday, April Davis will change the world. She doesn't know that yet. All she knows is that she went to justserve.org and volunteered an hour of her time. Browsing through dozens of service opportunities in her community, April decided to spend her Tuesday evening serving dinner to mothers and their children at a transitional house. She doesn't know she'll be serving a particular mother and daughter who will be spending their first night in this home. April doesn't know that the hot meal she'll serve is the first this mother and daughter will have had in a week, or that the simple smile she'll offer as she serves them will help them realize that things are going to be all right. Which is why this Tuesday, April Davis will change the world. See the difference you can make. Sign up for service opportunities in your community. Visit justserve.org.
Welcome back to the Valley. Today, I am your host, Janet Michael. We are on the Zooms today with Deb Fleming. She is Executive Director for the Greater Shenandoah Valley chapter of American Red Cross. Our topic today is community mobilization. We talked a little bit about what that looks like across the Shenandoah Valley. One of the points that fall under that or go hand in hand with that is the Disaster Leadership Academy. And Deb, we talked a little bit about that in January when you were still in the very early, I don't want to say idea stages, because you don't have any ideas without having a list that goes with the idea that you have. But for somebody who didn't hear that show or hear us talk about what the goal is for this program, explain it one more time.
So the Disaster Leadership Academy was created between you and me at coffee, which was one of the most productive coffees I've ever had. But we were talking about the needs in the community and how can we meet those needs and what do we see missing and where can we go with that? After talking with you, I went back and I started kind of writing a to-do list of all the things that we needed to accomplish in each community and to see where we were in that. What I recognized as I started sharing this with other people, because we bring other people in on this, the emergency management in Washington County said, hey, a lot of this is in the CERT training program. That is the Community Emergency Response Team. And it really is to mobilize community members so that when there is a disaster, they can respond for emergency management, but they also would be able to help the American Red Cross as well. So that's where it all began.
One of the things that came up during that conversation that we had that was a little surprising to me, but not, is the fact that we have all of these people in all of these different positions across all of our counties. And sometimes they are, I don't want to say have tunnel vision, but they know how to do what they know how to do, and they know how to do it very, very well. And sometimes they don't think about the other things that have to happen before, during, or after them doing their one thing. And that's kind of what this Leadership Academy should help with, is that your emergency management person, along with your person who helps with the homeless programs and helps with the food pantries, and they should all understand together how they intertwine when there's a crisis or a disaster in their community.
Yes. And, it's interesting you say that because right now the Red Cross has recognized that we're weak on our casework. And in the past, we have some really strong caseworkers. We have this system that we set up, and we're really starting to focus on, do we really know our casework partners? Because we don't provide those resources, but we look for our partners to provide that. And for a long time, it was coming from this large database, but it was at the Homeless Coalition meetings in Washington County that I went, wait a minute, there's a lot of organizations on here that had no idea what database we're using, so they're not even listed there. So we want to make sure that our clients have the best experience, that they get their needs met. And we trust that if we refer them to some of the larger organizations, that they're probably going to know those people, but we should know those people as well to make sure that they are connected. So that's one of the sides of what we're doing, is bringing people together. That's going to help the Red Cross better serve the clients as well. But you're right, with the other organizations, a lot of people would misunderstand that American Red Cross helps homeless people. We work specifically in the area of disaster. We have gotten many referrals for just, do you have a shelter tonight? And that's not the type of sheltering that we do. We help with disaster-related sheltering needs. So what does that mean? What does that look like? And just educating each other on what we do so that we're not stepping on each other's toes. We're not trying to find the funding that there's only so much of it. And we want to make sure that we're supporting each other in this process because our communities need us.
We talked a little bit about that last month in that the communication is so key because you don't want to come set up a shelter in a case of a flood and then find out that 2 other places are also setting up shelters, and now people are confused about where they should go and what circumstances require them to go to which shelter and who's doing food, that sort of stuff. Being a part of this disaster leadership academy, you're basically gonna train everyone to be somewhat on the same page. And that's also going to allow them to start creating these partnerships with all of these organizations in their own community.
Yeah, and what's really neat is as I'm getting to know some of the partners that I didn't really know a lot about, I knew of them. I'm realizing they do some of the things that we're missing. Like when we want to do a program on preparedness, there are programs out there that have bags, preparedness bags that they can give and that we can coordinate on that and they can do the things that they need to do and support us in what we need to do. So it's really kind of cool. It's almost like being back in elementary school where everybody's getting super excited. Like, when are we going to do this? When are we going to do this? Because all of these organizations, they want to do the best for their community, and we're all limited on resources. So how can we work together to best support each other and to minimize what it takes for us to do that? I feel so grateful for the group of nonprofit agencies that are not only wanting to be a part of it, but are calling me going, when is it starting? And we're just at that point where we're waiting for a couple of more things just to come through to see when it start date, but we definitely want to be started before October. So we're in the final stages of that, but it's really great just to see how much excitement. People aren't worried that somebody's going to take their job. There's just some things that can happen in these types of transitions where people start to fear as opposed to work together. And right now we all see that working together, we do benefit all the most.
When you said you were going to do this first one in Washington County, I was a little relieved because I thought, okay, that gives me a little time to maybe start asking some questions and talking to some people and making sure that when she's ready to do one here, all of the things have aligned. And as you know, I've been part of the Winchester City's civic leadership program. And so we did one of the classes on emergency management. So as we're there in that class, I'm talking to the emergency manager of Winchester. I'm like, so what would you think of a place where all of you could come together and you would know that if a tornado comes through, this is actually what the Red Cross does, but this is what Winchester CCAP does, and this is what Watts does. And you wouldn't be calling somebody to do something that isn't in their wheelhouse. And he's like, oh my gosh, that would be amazing. And I'm like, yes. I gotta say, I was a little worried that maybe some of them would have that concern about that's not my job or that's not your job. That has not been my situation. That has not been my experience at all. So I'm glad to hear the same thing for you in Washington County in Hagerstown.
Yeah, and actually, something that was surprised a lot of people is our elected officials are wanting to be a part of this as well, because ultimately they are responsible to supporting the people that have voted for them. And I was actually told by our county administrator that they'll be fighting over who gets to go first because we don't want everybody all at once. We want to scatter them out so that there's elected officials in each mod so that people get to know their elected officials as well. So this is one of those where whether you're a community member, whether you're a part of a nonprofit organization, either a staff or a volunteer, a government official, elected or non-elected official, we all work together during these times. In these times, and what happens is if you don't know each other, if you don't understand the role of the other person, you start to bump heads. And when you start to bump heads in a disaster, it can get out of hand really quickly. Feelings get hurt. People aren't served the way that they should be served, and people just get frustrated and then think that nobody's really out there for them. And we don't want that to happen. What we want to do is alleviate that human suffering during those disasters. That's part of our mission as the Red Cross. It's just so exciting that everybody else sees this vision. I haven't run across an organization that said, I don't know about this. If anything, I have people waiting in line to have this. And of course, this was because of you, Janet. I want to state that. This was
me and my twisted need for professional development in any way, shape, or form I can get it.
We just had the greatest conversation at coffee and went, we can do this.
We were scribbling notes and trying to figure out how it would look and what it would look like. And for me, my underlying thought was this is going to give you a really good opportunity to talk to those people who have some skills, have a want and a need to serve their community, and are on the fence, or they're just not sure where they could be of service. This is the kind of program that they can go through and then be an incredibly valuable volunteer for you moving forward and in their community every day, whether they're at the grocery store and something happens or they attend some sort of meeting or event. It's really helping grow our community in the ways that it needs to grow.
What's really great about this too is the Red Cross is looking to increase the number of volunteers who can deploy, but we're also looking at increasing the number of volunteers communally so that we don't have to deploy these volunteers, because we're in a cycle right now where last year we didn't have to deploy nearly as many people. And of course, we brought a bunch of people on and the disasters were able to be handled within their division or their region. So we didn't have to deploy as many people, which could feel very frustrating whenever you're ready to go and there's not something to go to, right? But what also is happening with that is that we're realizing that as we're bringing these volunteers on, they're ready to mobilize in their community and they're ready to help locally. And that's ultimately the goal, that we can support each other when something happens. We had to find 258 volunteers, I believe, for the year for our region, and we have 37 left that we're looking for. So we've made huge progress in filling the deployable positions. And now we're really looking at, let's focus on the community and get that community together, mobilize the community so that we're all speaking the same language. We know where to go, who we answer to, right? Because egos can get pretty big during a disaster.
So many of us don't know anything about that process. That was one of the things that was very eye-opening for me when I was in that city's program on their emergency management. He gave us a mock disaster, and you're the first person on the scene, and this is your title, and what do you do? And now you're coming on scene. Hierarchy did not occur to me. The mock-up was a tornado had hit Hanley High School and ripped the roof off of one of the buildings. And I'm thinking, okay, we got to get the kids evacuated and we got to get the parents notified. That's not even, that was like 6 or 7 down on the list of what you really needed to do as the roof is being blown off of this building. Most people don't know that. And once they do, they want to help.
And just think about that. If you're a parent who is unaware of that and you're at home and you realize that your kid is in that school and you don't know if they're safe and nobody is talking to you yet, how scary is that? If you don't know what's going on and you don't know, you think that nobody cares about your kid, right? People start to go to the worst place scenario, and it creates a lot of anxiety when disasters happen. And so what this does is help people realize that there is a system in place for security and to keep everybody safe and to keep things moving along. And it may not happen in the time frame that you might expect, but there's a lot going on there. And that's part of this Disaster Leadership Academy, is bringing these different groups of people together so that the elected officials who are being asked these questions by their constituents, that they can say, let me talk to this person and see what's going on, as opposed to nobody said anything to me, right? We don't want that to happen. We want that communication to be going. Or they get on Facebook or some other social media site, and that's where they're finding their information, which may be partially true or not true at all. You really have to know how to handle things that make you feel uncomfortable. And the best way to do that is to become educated on what it looks like. And so I would encourage as many people to go through these programs as possible, because the more people that are saying, oh no, this is okay, you can calm somebody else just by knowing what's going on. You can remove that distress on top of the rest of the distress, because if a tornado has come through and has taken the roof off of Hanley High School, it probably took the roof off of some other homes in the area, right? And now what's going on? There's all types of survival mechanisms that are going to kick in, and you want to be prepared.
Oh, yeah. I was shocked at just all of the things that wouldn't have occurred to me. And that was one of them. Tornado typically doesn't just sit down, mess up one building, and then leave. So now you have to spread out your area, and you have to deploy law enforcement, and you have to go house to house, and all of these things that would never have occurred to me. That was one of the most fascinating classes, I think, for me in the whole program as a whole. We graduate in May. I'll be done with that one, and I'll be moving on to disaster leadership next. So if somebody listening today wants to be one of your 37, the 37 that you have left that you need to get to, can they do that from the redcross.org website?
Yes. So if they go on redcross.org and sign up as a volunteer, we can get them into our disaster program. If they want to do something else in the Red Cross, there's other positions too. But we really do need people in disaster to be ready to go when a disaster happens. We're very fortunate right now that most things are being handled within the division, but we are getting to that tipping point right now in the Red Cross where we have people in Guam and Saipan that a lot of people don't even know that there was an issue there. But we have deployed people there. We expect to be there for about 3 months. We have wildfires happening and flooding, and there's all types of
Tornadoes just went
training.
through and ripped up the Midwest.
They're getting tired, people in those local areas, and that's when we'll start to deploy people, is when it gets past the point where their volunteers, their local community is just exhausted. And at that point, then you'll come in and support them with that. So if you want to deploy, there are going to be opportunities to deploy. If you want to stay local, we have local opportunities as well, so that you can start to get to know and then become a part of the Disaster Leadership Academy.
And what you have told me in the past is that a lot of people start off saying, look, I want to help you, but I just want to help you in my backyard. I'm not interested in doing anything else. And then they help with a couple of disasters or something along those lines. And then they come back and they're like, okay, I've done what I needed to do here. I want to go somewhere else now. I want to go see how it's done in Texas or Florida or Guam or whatever the situation is. I feel like it could be a little addictive.
It is interesting because we get a lot of people that are like, you know what, I only can get 5 hours a week. I'm retired and I don't want it to become my life. And they make friends in the Red Cross. They deploy, they create bonds. A lot of times I like to liken it to a military bond. When you deploy, you go through something that most people will never experience. And you come back with those stories and that connection. And you build friendships from that. And it's a really beautiful, when you see people come back who have deployed together, it's just, you can just see it's almost like their family. And so then they're like, oh, you know what, maybe I'll go with this person if they're going, you know? And pretty soon they're bringing somebody else along with them. And then they're biting at the chomp whenever there isn't a disaster because they want to go out and have that experience again. Disasters are hard because people in pain and you're working long hours. But when you realize what you have accomplished and what you have done for people out there, it is just such a rewarding experience and people come back. One of my favorite stories is I had a gentleman, he said, 5 hours, I've got 5 hours a week. I'm like, okay. He used to be a Boy Scout commissioner. So he wanted to do our preparedness programs with the Boy Scouts and was like, awesome. Pretty soon he gets excited about that. And then he's like, I can do some DAC calls. And that's where they go on the fires. And then he's like, that wasn't so bad. Maybe I'll help you install alarms. And before I know it, he is now the regional lead for feeding in Pennsylvania. And he deploys nationally often. And they got to the point where I had to say, you need to slow down and take a little bit better care of yourself. He's, oh, I love doing this. And so it went from 5 hours a week to, I would say he's probably doing 20 to 30 hours a week and just enjoying every moment. We have tons of stories like that, but he was one that came on when I was new as a disaster program manager and he saw that I needed help and he just stepped in and he just enjoyed helping so much. He just kept going. And now he's leading a region and I'm sure not all he's doing. And that's after I left that area. And now I don't know what else he got himself into, but that's what oftentimes happens. People really enjoy their experience and we want them to. We have over a 94% happiness score with our volunteers. That's pretty awesome. If somebody wants to join us, we would love to have them. We have so many roles that people could support in the Red Cross, and we need people from the community to help us understand what more is needed in the community and where we can be and where we don't need to step in. That's awesome. If the community is supporting something that we aren't needed there, then we'll put our resources elsewhere. We need those eyes and ears in the community to help us with that.
And that's a lot of what we're going to talk about over the next couple of months as well. We'll do some project updates on the Leadership Academy, find out where we stand. And then I'm excited to be able to do a show where we're saying, okay, people, it's now coming to us right here in our backyard. Just a couple of more months. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed for a couple of more months.
Yes, me too.
Thank you for taking the time today. I do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Janet.
I will be back tomorrow with a brand new episode of The Valley. Today it is Tourism Tuesday, Winchester, Frederick County edition, and we are talking noodles. So meet me and Justin Kearns back here for that just a few minutes after noon.